The neon lights of Nexus Prime painted the dark streets in shades of blue and red. This was the kind of place where questions were not asked, and credits spoke louder than words. In the shadows of the massive spaceport, deals were made that could change the fate of entire worlds. High above the busy streets, in a tower made of black glass and steel, sat the most feared organization in the galaxy. The Galactic Assassins Guild had been in business for over 3,000 years. They had killed kings, destroyed governments, and ended wars before they could begin. Their reputation was simple. If you had enough money, anyone could die. Guild Master Vexthara slithered across the floor of her office. Her snake-like body moved with deadly grace, while her 4 arms worked at different control panels. She had been running the guild for 50 years, and in that time, she had never seen a contract fail. The guild's success rate was perfect. 100%. The office walls were covered with holographic displays showing star maps, client requests, and target profiles. Red dots marked completed contracts across the galaxy. There were thousands of them, spread across hundreds of worlds. Each dot represented a life ended by guild hands. "Show me the new contracts," Vexthara said to her assistant, a thin gray alien with large black eyes. The assistant, named Crix, brought up a list of potential targets. "We have a Zephyrian, trade minister, a Volthan crime boss, and 3 separate contracts for rebel leaders in the Outer Rim." Vexthara studied each profile. The Zephyrians were easy targets. Their blue skin made them stand out in crowds, and they had weak hearts that could be stopped with simple poison. The Volthan would be harder. Their rock-like skin could stop most weapons, but they were slow and predictable. The rebels would require more planning, but the guild had dealt with their kind before. Accept all of them, she decided. Assign the standard teams? Crix nodded and began processing the contracts. But then he stopped, his large eyes blinking rapidly. "Guildmaster, there is something strange. A client has requested a contract on a human target." The temperature in the room seemed to drop. Vexthara's 4 arms froze over the control panels. Her yellow eyes narrowed to thin slits. "What did you say?" "A human target, Guildmaster." "The client is offering triple the usual fee." Vexthara's tail lashed against the floor. "Show me." The holographic display changed to show a single entry. It was marked with warning symbols and sealed with the highest level of encryption. At the top, in bold red letters, were the words: species classification, human, status, forbiddance, penalty for breach, immediate termination. "How long have you worked for the guild, Crix?" 15 years, Guildmaster." "Then you should know. Better than to even mention this." Vexthara's voice was cold and dangerous. "Humans are forbidden. This has been the rule for 200 years. Anyone who breaks this rule dies." Crix backed away, his gray skin turning pale. "I am sorry, Guild Master. I will tell the client that we cannot accept the contract." "Wait." Vexthara stared at the display. "Who made this request?" "A Krillian warlord named Vexmore. He says the human killed his son in a duel. Tell him the guild does not accept contracts on humans. Do not explain why. If he asks questions, end the communication." After Crix left, Vexthara moved to a hidden panel in the wall. She pressed her palm against a scanner, and a secret door opened. Inside was a small room filled with ancient records and forbidden knowledge. This was where the guild kept its darkest secrets. She pulled out an old data crystal, one that had not been accessed in decades. The crystal contained the original files from 2 centuries ago, the files that explained why humans were forbidden. The record began with a name, Zarkith the Void Walker. He had been the guild's most skilled assassin, capable of moving through walls and becoming invisible at will. The file showed his success rate, 437 kills, 0 failures. Zarkith had been assigned to lead a team of 12 assassins to a small world called Earth. The humans there were primitive, barely capable of space travel. They had no advanced weapons, no psychic abilities, and no knowledge of the greater galaxy. It should have been an easy mission. A team had been tasked with eliminating key human leaders and preparing the way for a larger guild presence. Humans were to become the guild's newest recruiting ground, a place where they could train new assassins on easy targets. But something had gone wrong. Terribly wrong. The file showed that Zarkith and his team had entered human space, and then simply vanished. No distress signals, no reports, no trace of their advanced stealth ships. 12 of the guild's best assassins had disappeared without explanation. Search teams had been sent to find them. They had found nothing. It was as if Zarkith and his team had never existed. The final entry in the file had been written by the previous guildmaster Vexthara's predecessor. It read, "Recommendation: immediate prohibition of all operations targeting human subjects. Species demonstrates unknown defensive capabilities. Potential threat level: extinction class. This matter is never to be discussed again." Vexthara closed the file and returned the crystal to its hiding place. She had read this record many times over the years, but it still made her scales crawl with fear. The guild feared nothing in the galaxy. They had weapons that could destroy, planets and assassins who could kill gods. But humans were different. Humans were forbidden. She returned to her office and brought up the guild's main database. The record showed every known species in the galaxy, their weaknesses, their strengths, and the best methods for killing them. There were entries for over 10,000 different species, but in the restricted section, sealed behind layers of encryption and warning symbols, was a single entry for humans. The file was nearly empty, containing only basic physical descriptions and the word "forbiddens" repeated hundreds of times. Vexthara had often wondered what made humans so dangerous. They seemed weak compared to other species. They had no natural weapons, no thick skin, no poison or psychic abilities. They were small and soft and appeared to die easily, but the guild's rules were absolute. Humans were forbidden, and that was final. A soft chime indicated an incoming message. Vexthara opened the communication channel and saw the face of Captain Jake Morrison, a human officer from the Earth Colonial Defense Force. "Guildmaster Vexthara," Morrison said, his voice calm and steady. "I am Captain Morrison of the ECS. Defender, we have detected unusual activity near the Kepler 442b system. Unknown vessels have been spotted in the area." Vexthara's blood turned to ice. If there were guild ships near human space, it could mean only one thing: someone was about to break the most sacred rule in the organization's history. "Captain Morrison," she replied, keeping her voice steady, "I assure you that any vessels you have detected are not connected to my organization. The guild has no operations in human space." Morrison nodded. "I appreciate your cooperation, Guildmaster. However, I must inform you that if any hostile actions are taken against human targets, there will be consequences." The communication ended, leaving Vexthara alone with her thoughts. She had to find out who was operating near human space, and stop them before they triggered another Cairo incident. The guild's perfect reputation depended on it. More importantly, their survival might depend on it too. Dr. Elena Martinez carefully lifted the ancient artifact from its protective case. The research station Odyssey floated in empty space, far from any inhabited worlds. This was where humanity's best scientists came to study the mysteries of the galaxy's past. The artifact was a data crystal, but it was different from the others she had found. While the rest of the precursor ruins dated back millions of years, this crystal appeared to be much newer, perhaps only 200 years old. "Computer, Scan this crystal for data patterns, Elena said. The station's advanced systems went to work. After several minutes, the computer responded. Data crystal contains fragmented records. Origin appears to be from the Galactic Assassins. Guild. Warning. Some files may be corrupted or incomplete. Elena's heart began to race. The Guild was known throughout the galaxy, but they were secretive about their operations. Finding Guild records was like discovering buried treasure. Display the files, she ordered. The holographic screen filled with text and images. Most of it was encrypted, but some sections were readable. Elena saw mission reports, target profiles, and something called Operation Terran Silence. Her hands trembled as she read the incomplete records. The files mentioned a team of assassins led by someone named Zarkith. They had been sent to a world called Earth, which Elena recognized as humanity's home planet. Computer, cross-reference these records with historical databases. The search took several hours. When it was complete, Elena stared at the results in shock. The dates matched a period in human history when several important leaders had disappeared under mysterious circumstances. The official reports had listed them as unsolved cases. Elena opened a communication channel to Earth. She needed to contact Professor Ben Carter at the Interstellar Relations Institute. Ben was an expert on first contact protocols and early human history. Ben, I need you to see something important, Elena said when Carter's face appeared on the screen. I found Guild records that mention Earth. Carter's expression grew serious. Send me everything you have. I'll review it immediately. While waiting for Carter's response, Elena continued studying the crystal. The more she read, the more confused she became. According to the records, Zarkith was one of the Guild's most feared assassins. He had killed hundreds of targets across the galaxy and never failed a mission. But the Earth operation had been different. The records showed that Zarkith and his team had entered human space, and then the files simply stopped. There were no mission reports, no success confirmations, and no return dates. Carter called back within an hour. His face was pale and worried. Elena, these records match gaps in our historical archives. During the late 2380s, several key political figures vanished without explanation. President Maria Santos, Defense Minister Carlos Rodriguez, and others. The cases were never solved. What do you think happened to them? I don't know, but I'm going to find out. I have access to classified historical records that might have more information. Meanwhile, on Nexus Prime, a young assassin named Krilter was having problems of his own. The Zealathian had been with the Guild for only 3 years, but he was eager to prove himself. His 4 eyes could see in multiple spectrums, and his natural agility made him perfect for stealth work. Krilter was trying to access the Guild's main database to study potential targets. He wanted to find a difficult assignment that would impress his superiors. But as he searched through the files, he accidentally triggered a security protocol. The screen filled with warning messages and red alerts. Before he could close the program, a restricted file opened. It was marked with the highest security classification and contained information about humans. Species classification, human, status, forbiddens, he read aloud. Krilter had never heard of humans before. He studied the basic physical description: bipedal, average height, no natural weapons or armor. They seemed weak and easy to kill. Why would such a primitive species be forbidden? He tried to access more information, but most of the files were locked. However, he did find one partially corrupted record. It mentioned a team of 12 assassins who had been sent to study human defenses. The mission was led by Zarkith the Void Walker. Krilter knew that name. Zarkith was a legend in the Guild. Stories said he could walk through walls and become invisible at will. If anyone could handle primitive humans, it would be him. But according to the file, Zarkith's team had never returned from their mission. The record showed that they had simply vanished without a trace. The file's final entry was written by a previous guild master. It read, "Recommendation: immediate prohibition of all operations targeting human subjects. Species demonstrates unknown. Defensive capabilities. Potential threat level. Extinction class." Extinction class. Quilter had never seen that classification before. It was higher than any other threat rating in the guild system. He quickly closed the file and cleared his access logs, but the questions remained in his mind. How could such a weak species be classified as an extinction-level threat? Back on the research station, Elena received another communication from Carter. This time, he looked even more worried. "Elena, I found something in the classified archives. There was an incident in Cairo, Egypt, in 2387. Multiple unknown hostiles attacked a diplomatic summit. They had advanced technology and weapons that our forces had never seen before. What happened? That's the strange part. According to the reports, the attackers were defeated. All of them. But the official records have been sealed, and most of the details are classified above my clearance level." Elena studied the guild crystal again. "Ben, I think these guild records are connected to your Cairo incident. The dates match perfectly. If that's true, then it means the guild once tried to attack Earth and failed. But why would they attack us? We weren't even a spacefaring civilization back then. Maybe they weren't trying to attack us. Maybe they were trying to recruit us." Carter was quiet for a long moment. That would make sense. The guild is always looking for new members. If they thought humans were weak and easy to control, they might have tried to establish a presence on Earth. But something went wrong. Very wrong. And now they're forbidden to even try again. Elena sealed the crystal in a secure container. "I'm sending this to Earth immediately. This information needs to reach the highest levels of government." "Agreed. But Elena, be careful. If the guild finds out that we have these records, they might decide that the prohibition on humans no longer applies." After ending the communication, Elena sat alone in her laboratory. The implications of her discovery were staggering. For 2 centuries, humanity had been living under the protection of a prohibition they didn't even know existed. The guild could have eliminated key human leaders at any time. They could have destabilized governments, started wars, or recruited humans as assassins. But they had chosen not to. They had marked humans as forbidden and stayed away. The question was, why? Elena looked at the sealed crystal containing the guild records. Somewhere in those corrupted files was the answer. The truth about what had happened in Cairo 2 centuries ago. The truth about why the galaxy's most feared assassins were afraid of humanity. She began preparing for the journey to Earth. Crystal would need to be delivered to the proper authorities, and she would need to testify about her findings. But first, she had to make sure the information was secure. As she worked, Elena couldn't shake the feeling that she was being watched. The research station was supposed to be safe, hidden in empty space where no one would think to look. But the guild had ways of finding things that others. COULDN single quotes T. She increased the station's sensor range and activated all security protocols. If the guild was looking for their lost records, they would find the station heavily defended. Elena had no idea that her discovery would soon trigger events that would shake the foundations of galactic society. The secret of the Cairo incident was about to be revealed, and with it, the truth about humanity's place in the galaxy. The guild's perfect reputation had been built on fear and secrecy. But secrets had a way of coming to light, and this one had been buried for far too long. In the depths of space, ancient truths were stirring. And somewhere in the shadows of Nexus Prime, young assassins like Quilter were beginning to ask dangerous questions about the species that was forbidden to them. The galaxy was about to learn why humans were different. and why the Guild's most sacred rule existed for a very good reason. Colonel Lisa Harper sat in the secure briefing room, deep beneath the Colonial Intelligence Agency headquarters. The room was built to withstand nuclear attacks and block all forms of electronic surveillance. This was where humanity's darkest secrets were kept. Dr. Martinez's report lay open on the table before her. The discovery of Guild records was exactly what Harper had feared would happen someday. For 2 centuries, she and a select few others had guarded the truth about the Cairo incident. How? Many people know about this? Harper asked her aide, Lieutenant Tony Walsh. Dr. Martinez, Professor Carter, and possibly some research staff on the Odyssey station, Walsh replied. We've been monitoring their communications. Harper nodded. Bring me General Mitchell and Admiral Sullivan. It's time for them to know the full truth. Within an hour, the 3 highest-ranking military officers in the Colonial Defense Force sat around the briefing table. General Ron Mitchell commanded the ground forces, while Admiral Kate Sullivan led the space fleet. Both had heard rumors about the Cairo incident, but neither knew the complete story. What you're about to hear is classified at the highest level, Harper began. The information in this room could change the balance of power in the galaxy. She activated a holographic display showing classified files from 2387. The images were grainy and old, but they clearly showed something that shouldn't have existed at that time. Alien technology on Earth. 200 years ago, Earth was attacked by the Galactic Assassins Guild, Harper said. They sent a team of 12 assassins to eliminate key political leaders and establish a foothold on our world. General Mitchell leaned forward. How is that possible? We didn't even know aliens existed back then. The Guild specializes in attacking primitive worlds. They prefer targets who can't fight back effectively. Earth seemed perfect for their purposes. Admiral Sullivan studied the images. But we survived, obviously. More than survived. We won. Completely. Harper brought up a new set of files. The Guild's team was led by an assassin named Zarkith the Voidwalker. He had never failed a mission in over 2 centuries of operations. The display showed a security recording from the Cairo Diplomatic Summit. World leaders were gathered to discuss the formation of the United Earth Government. It should have been a moment of celebration for humanity. Instead, it became a battlefield. The recording showed the exact moment when Zarkith's team attacked. Figures in advanced armor appeared from nowhere, phasing through walls like ghosts. Their weapons fired beams of energy that could cut through steel. How did our people even see them? Mitchell asked. That's where the story gets interesting, Harper replied. Dr. Ahmad Hassan was at the summit. He was a physicist working on experimental defensive technology. The display showed Hassan's workshop, filled with strange devices and prototype equipment. In the center was a machine that looked like a cross between a computer and a radio telescope. Hassan had been working on something called neural shield technology. It was designed to protect against psychic attacks and mental manipulation. The device generated a field that could disrupt certain types of energy, including alien technology, Sullivan realized. Exactly. When Zarkith's team entered the building, Hassan's neural shield created an interference field. Their stealth systems failed, their phase-shifting abilities stopped working, and their advanced weapons began to malfunction. The recording showed the moment when the invisible assassins suddenly became visible. Security guards who had been shooting at empty air suddenly found themselves facing real targets. But they still had superior technology and training. Mitchell pointed out. They did, but they also made a crucial mistake. They assumed humans would panic and run when faced with superior opponents. Harper smiled grimly. They were wrong. The display showed Commander Steve Taylor, head of security for the summit. Instead of retreating when faced with alien attackers, Taylor immediately began coordinating a defense. His calm voice could be heard over the chaos, organizing his people and directing their fire. Taylor had no idea what he was fighting, but he knew his job was to protect the world leaders. He treated the assassins like any other threat. The recording showed human security forces using tactics that the Guild had never encountered. They took cover behind overturned tables, used smoke grenades to obscure vision, and coordinated their attacks with military precision. The Guild assassins were trained to fight opponents who relied on technology and psychic abilities, Harper explained. They had never faced enemies who used such primitive but effective tactics. The battle moved through the building as the assassins tried to complete their mission. But Hassan's neural shield had created dead zones throughout the structure, areas where alien technology simply didn't work properly. "Watch this part carefully," Harper said. The recording showed Zarkith himself, cornered in a hallway by 3 human security guards. The alien assassin was tall and thin, with 4 arms and skin that seemed to shift between solid and translucent. Zarkith raised his weapon, but it sparked and died. He tried to phase through the wall, but the neural shield held him solid. For the first time in his long career, the Void Walker was trapped. Commander Taylor appeared at the end of the hallway, his weapon raised. "Surrender now, and you won't be harmed." Zarkith's response was to draw a curved blade from his belt. If technology had failed him, he would rely on his centuries of combat experience. The fight that followed was brief but decisive. Taylor dodged the alien's first strike and responded with a move that would have been impossible if Zarkith had retained his phasing ability. The human grabbed the assassin's wrist and used his own momentum against him. Zarkith hit the wall hard and didn't get up. The other assassins saw their leader fall. Harper continued. They had been taught that failure was impossible, that the Guild always succeeded. Seeing Zarkith defeated broke their confidence. The recording showed the surviving assassins attempting to retreat. But Hassan's neural shield had affected their stealth ships as well. The vessels were no longer invisible to Earth's primitive radar systems. Lieutenant Danny Clark was leading a patrol flight when the alien ships appeared on his sensors, Harper said. He had no idea what they were, but they were trying to leave Earth's atmosphere without authorization. The display showed Clark's squadron of fighter jets engaging the Guild vessels. The alien ships were still far superior to human technology, but they were operating at reduced efficiency due to the neural shield's interference. The fight lasted 20 minutes, Harper said. When it was over, all 12 Guild ships had been destroyed. Not a single human fighter was lost. The room fell silent as the implications sank in. Humanity had not only survived an attack by the galaxy's most feared assassins, but had completely defeated them. What happened to the survivors? Sullivan asked. There were 3 assassins who survived the ground battle. They were taken into custody by Earth's security forces. Within days, they were all dead. Killed during interrogation? No, they killed themselves. Guild training includes instructions to commit suicide rather than reveal secrets. But before they died, they managed to send a message to their headquarters. Harper brought up a new file. This is a translation of that message. It was intercepted by Dr. Hassan's equipment. The text was short but terrifying. Humans are not what they appear. They adapted to our tactics in real time. They showed no fear. They treated us like any other enemy. Recommend immediate withdrawal from human space. These beings are dangerous beyond our understanding. The Guild received this message and immediately declared humans off limits, Harper concluded. They created the prohibition that Dr. Martinez discovered, and they've maintained it for 2 centuries. General Mitchell shook his head. All this time, we've been protected by a rule we didn't even know existed. The Guild fears us, Admiral Sullivan realized. They're afraid that if they attack humans again, they might lose more than just a few assassins. Harper nodded. The Guild's power depends on their reputation for being unstoppable. If word spread that they had been defeated by a primitive species, other races might start to question their invincibility. So they covered it up, Mitchell said. Made it seem like humans were too dangerous to touch. Exactly. And for 2 centuries, it worked. No guild assassin has set foot in human space since the Cairo incident. The 3 officers sat in contemplative silence. The truth about humanity's place in the galaxy was far different from what they had believed. They weren't just another young species trying to find their way among the stars. They were the species that had broken the guild's perfect record. "What do we do now?" Sullivan asked. "Dr. Martinez's discovery is going to become public knowledge. We prepare," Harper said. The guild's prohibition was based on fear and secrecy. Now that the secret is out, they might decide that the old rules no longer apply. "You think they'll try again?" "I think some of them will want to. The younger assassins won't understand why humans are forbidden. They'll see us as a challenge to be overcome." Harper stood and walked to the window overlooking the city. "The galaxy is about to learn that humans are not the primitive species they thought we were. The question is, are we ready for what comes next?" The Cairo incident had been buried for 2 centuries, but its effects had shaped the galaxy in ways that no one fully understood. Now, with the truth beginning to emer asterisk, the streets of Cairo had never seen anything like it. The year 2387 would go down in history as the day humanity learned they were not alone in the universe. But for the people living through it, it was simply chaos. Commander Steve Taylor pressed his back against the marble pillar as energy bolts sizzled past his head. The diplomatic summit had turned into a war zone in a matter of minutes. Around him, his security team was taking cover behind overturned tables and decorative fountains. "Sir, what are we fighting?" Sergeant Mike Danis called out from across the room. Taylor looked at the enemy forces moving through the building. They were tall and thin, with 4 arms and skin that seemed to shift between solid and transparent. Their weapons fired beams of light that could cut through steel. "I don't know, Davis, but they're trying to kill world leaders, so we stop them." Dr. Ahmad Hassan crouched behind his experimental equipment, frantically adjusting controls. The neural shield device was working, but barely. He could see the alien attackers becoming visible whenever they moved through the device's field. "Commander Taylor," Hassan called out, "stay near my equipment. It's disrupting their technology somehow." Taylor nodded and began moving his team toward Hassan's position. The aliens seemed confused by their tactics. They had expected panic and running, not organized resistance. Captain Nicole Reed led her squad of Earth Defense Corps soldiers through the building's back entrance. They had been providing security for the summit when the attack began. Now they found themselves fighting enemies from another world. "Reed to Taylor," she said into her radio. "We're coming in from the south entrance. What's the situation?" "Unknown. Hostiles with advanced technology. They can turn invisible and walk through walls. But something is interfering with their abilities." Reed's team moved carefully through the corridors. They could hear the sound of fighting ahead, but they also heard something else. Voices speaking in a language that didn't sound human. "These things are talking to each other," her radio operator, Corporal Jim Brown, reported. "It sounds like they're coordinating an attack. Can you understand what they're saying?" "No, but they sound frustrated, like their plan isn't working." Reed rounded a corner and came face to face with one of the aliens. The creature was trying to phase through a wall, but it kept bouncing off the solid surface. It turned toward her with 4 yellow eyes filled with confusion. Reed didn't hesitate. She raised her rifle and fired 3 shots center mass. The alien's armor absorbed most of the impact, but the force knocked it backward. It looked at her with what might have been surprise before raising its own weapon, but the weapon sparked and died. The alien shook it angrily, then threw it aside and drew a curved blade from its belt. "So you want to do this the old-fashioned way," Reed said, drawing her combat knife. The alien was fast, but Reed had trained for close combat her entire military career. She dodged the first strike and responded with a move that used the alien's own momentum against it. The blade went between the creature's ribs, and it collapsed. "Read to all units," she said into her radio. "Their technology doesn't work properly in here, but they're still dangerous in hand-to-hand combat. Use standard tactics." Meanwhile, in the main conference room, Zarkith the Void Walker was learning that his centuries of experience meant nothing against an enemy he had never faced before. The human security forces moved like they had been fighting aliens their entire lives. They used cover effectively, coordinated their attacks, and adapted their tactics in real time. Most importantly, they showed no fear. Zarkith had killed beings from over 100 different species. He had eliminated warriors, psychics, and creatures with natural weapons that could tear through steel. But he had never fought anyone who treated him like just another enemy soldier. "Team leader to all units," he said into his communication device. "Targets are showing unexpected resistance. Request immediate backup." "Negative, team leader," came the response from his ship. "You have full authorization to use maximum force. Complete the mission." Zarkith activated his phase-shifting ability and tried to walk through the wall. But instead of passing through, he hit solid marble. The neural shield was creating dead zones where his technology simply didn't work. He tried again, moving to a different section of the room. This time he managed to phase halfway through the wall before becoming solid again. He was stuck, half in and half out of the stone. Commander Taylor saw the alien's predicament and moved quickly. He grabbed Zarkith's arms and pulled him back into the room. The alien assassin found himself face to face with a human who was supposed to be his victim. "You picked the wrong planet," Taylor said, then hit him with a move that would have been impossible if Zarkith had retained his phasing ability. The Void Walker hit the floor hard. For the first time in over 2 centuries, he had been defeated in combat. Outside the building, Lieutenant Danny Clark was leading a patrol flight when his radar suddenly lit up with contacts. 12 unknown aircraft were rising from the ground near the diplomatic summit. "Control, this is Eagle Flight. We have 12 bogies leaving the target area without authorization. Eagle Flight, those aircraft are not cleared for takeoff. Order them to return to the ground immediately." Clark tried to radio the unknown aircraft, but received no response. The ships were unlike anything in Earth's databases. They were sleek and angular, with no visible engines or weapons. "Control, bogies are not responding to radio contact and are continuing to climb. Requesting permission to intercept. Eagle Flight, you are authorized to use any necessary force to prevent those aircraft from leaving Earth's atmosphere." Clark's squadron moved to intercept the alien ships. The enemy vessels were clearly more advanced than human fighters, but they were moving slowly and seemed to be having mechanical problems. "Eagle 2, do you see that?" Clark's wingman, Captain Sarah Lopez, pointed to one of the alien ships. "It's flickering like a bad hologram." "I see it. Something's wrong with their stealth systems." The alien ships finally noticed the approaching human fighters and began evasive maneuvers. But their movements were clumsy, as if their pilots were having trouble controlling their vessels. "All Eagles, attack pattern Delta. Target the lead ship." The dogfight that followed was unlike anything in Earth's military history. The alien ships had weapons that could fire in multiple directions at once, but they seemed unable to get a lock on the human fighters. Clark rolled his fighter to avoid an energy blast and came around behind one of the enemy ships. His targeting computer couldn't get a solid lock, but his training had taught him to rely on his instincts when technology failed. He fired a burst from his cannon, walking the shots across the alien ship's hull. The vessel exploded in a brilliant flash of light. Eagle Leader splashed one bogey. The other alien ships began to panic. Their formation broke apart as they tried to escape individually. But Hassan's neural shield was affecting them even at this. Altitude and their stealth systems kept failing. Eagle Flight, I'm getting multiple locks. These things are sitting ducks. One by one, the alien ships fell to Earth's fighters. The pilots had expected to face primitive aircraft with limited weapons. Instead, they found themselves outmaneuvered by pilots who had trained for aerial combat their entire careers. Within 20 minutes, all 12 alien ships had been destroyed. Not a single human fighter was lost. Back in the building, the surviving assassins were in full retreat. They had lost their leader, their technology was failing, and their mission had turned into a disaster. All units, fall back to extraction point. One of them transmitted. Negative, came the response. Extraction ships have been destroyed. You are on your own. The 3 surviving assassins looked at each other with something approaching panic. They had never been in a situation where retreat was impossible. Captain Reed's team cornered them in a storage room. The aliens had barricaded themselves behind stacks of supplies, but they were running out of ammunition. This is Captain Reed, Earth Defense Corps. You are surrounded. Surrender now, and you will not be harmed. The response was a barrage of energy. Fire that scorched the walls around the doorway. But the weapons were losing power, their shots becoming weaker with each blast. They're running out of juice, Corporal Brown observed. Whatever's interfering with their tech is draining their weapons too. Reed waited for a pause in the firing, then moved quickly. She rolled across the doorway and took cover behind a concrete pillar. From this position, she could see all 3 aliens clearly. They looked desperate. Their armor was damaged, their weapons were failing, and they were trapped with no way out. But instead of surrendering, they drew their blade weapons and prepared for a final stand. Your choice, Reed said, raising her rifle. The first alien charged with a war cry that sounded like breaking glass. Reed put 3 rounds center mass, dropping it before it could close the distance. The second alien tried to flank her position, but Corporal Brown was ready with covering fire. The last alien looked at its fallen comrades and made a decision that would echo through guild history. Instead of fighting, it activated a device on its belt. A small red light began blinking rapidly. Grenade. Reed. Captain Jake Morrison stood on the bridge of the ECS Defender, watching the sensor readings with growing concern. The mysterious ships near Kepler 442b had been identified as guild vessels, but they weren't supposed to be in human space. Lieutenant Brooks, what's our status on those contacts? Lieutenant Amy Brooks looked up from her tactical station. 7 ships, Captain. They're trying to maintain stealth, but our new sensor arrays are picking them up. They appear to be setting up some kind of base on the asteroid field. Morrison frowned. The Guild had maintained their prohibition on human operations for 2 centuries. Why would they risk breaking it now? Open a channel to the lead ship. Channel open, sir. Unknown vessels. This is Captain Morrison of the Earth Colonial Defense Force. You are in violation of human space. State your intentions immediately. There was a long pause before a response came. The voice was young and defiant. Human vessel, this is Strike Leader Krilter of the Galactic Assassins Guild. We are conducting training operations. Your presence is not required. Morrison exchanged glances with Brooks. Training operations in human space was a direct violation of the prohibition. Strike Leader, you are ordered to leave the system immediately. Any hostile actions will be met with force. Krilter's response was filled with contempt. You dare threaten the Guild? We have killed beings far more dangerous than your primitive species. On Nexus Prime, Guild Master Vexthara was receiving reports of the unauthorized operation with growing alarm. Kriltar had taken 6 other young assassins and left the station without permission. Their target proved that the human prohibition was based on outdated information. Recall them immediately, she ordered her communications officer. I've been trying, Guildmaster. Kriltar has disabled his recall beacon. He's not responding to direct orders. Vexthara's scales turned a darker shade of green, a sign of extreme agitation. Send a recovery team. Full stealth protocols. Ma'am, if we send ships into human space, it could trigger a diplomatic incident. If we don't stop Kriltar, it could trigger something much worse. Meanwhile, Dr. Elena Martinez and Professor Ben Carter were presenting their findings to a joint session of the Colonial Senate. The revelation that humanity had once defeated the Guild was sending shockwaves through the government. Senator Robert Hayes, chairman of the Defense Committee, studied the evidence with a mixture of pride and concern. Dr. Martinez, are you certain these records are authentic? Yes, Senator. We've verified them through multiple sources. The Guild once tried to eliminate human leadership and was completely defeated. And this prohibition has protected us for 2 centuries? Professor Carter nodded. The Guild's reputation depends on their success rate. Admitting they were defeated by a primitive species would undermine their entire organization. Senator Linda Foster leaned forward. But now the secret is out. What's to stop them from trying again? Nothing, Carter admitted. In fact, we believe some Guild members may already be testing our defenses. At that moment, alarms began sounding throughout the Capitol building. Emergency broadcasts announced that Guild vessels had been detected in human space for the first time in 2 centuries. Back on the Issei Defender, Captain Narration was preparing for battle. Kriltar's ships had moved into attack formation. There, weapons charging for the first strike. All hands, this is the captain. We are about to engage hostile alien vessels. Remember your training and trust in your fellow crew members. We will not allow them to threaten human lives. Lieutenant Brooks activated the ship's neural shield generators, technology that had evolved from Dr. Hassan's original device. Shields are online, Captain. All systems show green. Kriltar's first attack came without warning. Energy beams lanced out from his ships, striking the defender's hull. But the neural shields absorbed most of the impact, and what got through was stopped by conventional armor. Return fire, Morrison ordered. The defender's weapons were based on human technology, refined through decades of colonial conflicts. They might not have been as advanced as Guild weapons, but they were reliable and effective. The first salvo caught Kriltar by surprise. His stealth systems flickered and failed as the neural shields interfered with his technology. Suddenly, all 7 Guild ships were visible on sensors. Impossible, Kriltar muttered. Their weapons shouldn't be able to penetrate our defenses. His tactical officer, a young Vorthic named Shender, looked confused. Strike leader, our systems are malfunctioning. Stealth generators are offline, and our phase shift drives aren't responding. Kriltar's 4 eyes narrowed. And we fight them like our ancestors did. Close range, blade to blade. But as his ships moved closer to the defender, they encountered something the Guild had never faced before. Coordinated human tactics in space. Lieutenant Brooks had studied every available record of Guild fighting techniques. She knew they preferred individual combat, relying on superior technology to overcome their enemies. Captain, they're breaking formation. Each ship is attacking independently. Perfect. Execute Delta formation. The Defender's escort ships, 2 destroyers and a cruiser, moved into a tactical formation that surrounded the Guild vessels. Instead of engaging in individual duels, the human ships coordinated their attacks to focus fire on one target at a time. Quilter watched in horror as his ships were systematically destroyed. The humans fought like a pack, supporting each other and covering weaknesses. When one ship was damaged, the others moved to protect it. Strike Leader, we're being overwhelmed. Shender reported, our weapons can't penetrate their shields, and they're destroying us one by one. Retreat, Quilter ordered. Full power to engines. But the human ships had anticipated this move. They had positioned themselves to cut off escape routes, forcing the guild vessels into a killing ground. One by one, Quilter's ships fell to human weapons. Finally, only his command vessel remained, its systems failing and its hull breached in multiple places. This is Captain Morrison. Surrender now, and you will be treated according to the laws of war. Quilter looked around his bridge at his dying crew. Everything the guild had taught him about human weakness had been wrong. These beings fought with a coordination and determination that his people couldn't match. Strike Leader, Shender said weakly. What are your orders? Quilter reached for the self-destruct control, following guild tradition. But then he stopped. His crew was young, barely out of training. They didn't deserve to die for his arrogance. Power. Down all weapons, he said quietly, prepared to be boarded. The capture of a guild strike team sent shockwaves through the organization. For the first time in their history, guild assassins had been taken alive by their intended targets. Master Vexthara arrived at Nexus Prime's emergency council chamber to find the organization in chaos. News of the failed attack on humans was spreading through the criminal underworld, and the guild's reputation was crumbling. How many know about this? She asked her intelligence chief. Everyone. The human government released footage of the battle. They're calling it proof that the guild is not invincible. Vexthara felt her carefully maintained control beginning to slip. What do our clients say? 17 contracts have been canceled. 3 major crime syndicates have announced they're seeking alternative services. The guild's power had always been based on fear and reputation. If that reputation was damaged, their entire organization could collapse. Open a channel to Earth. I need to speak with their leadership immediately. Admiral Kate Sullivan received Vexthara's communication request in her office at Fleet Command. The timing was not coincidental. Earth's government had been expecting this call since Dr. Martinez's discovery became public. Guild Master Vexthara, Sullivan said as the alien's image appeared on her screen. I assume you're calling about your people's unauthorized operation in our space. Admiral Sullivan, I want to assure you that Quilter was acting without guild authorization. His actions do not represent our organization's policy. And what is your organization's policy regarding humans? Vexthara's scales shifted color slightly. The prohibition remains in effect. Humans are not to be targeted by guild operations. But some of your people don't understand why that prohibition exists. No, the historical records were restricted for good reason. Sullivan leaned back in her chair. Maybe it's time to change that. The truth about the Cairo incident is already public knowledge. Your people are going to keep testing us until they understand why we're different. What do you suggest? Full disclosure. Tell your people exactly what happened 2 centuries ago. Let them know that humans aren't forbidden because we're weak, but because we're dangerous. Vexthara considered this for a long moment. The guild had built its power on secrecy and fear, but those same tools were now working against them. And in return, we establish formal diplomatic relations. The guild stops operating in human space, and we won't interfere with your activities elsewhere in the galaxy. You would trust us to honor such an agreement? Sullivan smiled grimly. Guildmaster, your organization's survival depends on maintaining your reputation. If word spreads that humans can defeat you consistently, how long do you think the guild will remain in business?